Tom Luginbill joins us on the show, national college football analyst with ESPN, brought to you by Ben Nelson Golf and Outdoors. That's where you go to get your next easy go golf car for the neighborhood. Some of you need it for your manufacturing facility, construction site, but recreationally, easy go golf cars powered by Ben Nelson Golf and Outdoors in Memphis, Madison, and the beautiful Mississippi Gulf Coast. We welcome in Tom Luginbill to the show. Lugs, you had a good one on Saturday with Central Florida and Oklahoma.
Yeah, man. I had a great football game. I mean, it was kind of similar to a lot of games that went on across college football last weekend, just in terms of the closeness and the competitiveness and the surprise of it all. I think, Bo, this is what you're going to get. You're dealing with 18 to 22-year-old kids. Each day and each week is different. You're getting down the stretch. Teams are tired. Teams are banged up. Focus can tend to wane. This is what I kind of call the maturity portion of the season. Who can handle the grind so that you're at your best each and every Saturday?
Okay, that takes me to Ole Miss. Auburn may not be good, but the bottom line is they're winning. They had not beat Auburn, Tom Luginbill, back-to-back since 1951-52, which is hard to believe.
Yep.
But they went on the road, and Auburn was still – they may not be going forward, but there was still a lot of excitement in the fan base. And that's a tough place to play, as you and I both know. It didn't go well for them for a while, but they found a way to win. And I think that's what Lane was talking about post-game. And the bottom line is they're one of the teams that can go get an explosive play on the ground or through the air, and not everybody in college football can do that right now. Luke's?
Yeah, they had over 11 yards, all right, especially, per pass attempt. But the explosive plays are there. And listen, you have to give Auburn a ton of credit on defense. They're hanging on by a thread on offense. They have no answers, and the defense goes out there, ends up getting 7 stops, which is a huge number, but they're not getting helped out by the offense. But I think the backbreaker was for Auburn, and then a sign of resiliency and the ability to finish the game was the 90-yard scoring drive and the 68-yard scoring drive. That was demoralizing to Auburn, who'd played well on defense. And listen, this is an Ole Miss team. They're going to end up taking on Georgia. Things are starting to kind of come into flow with them. They're healthy. They seem to have the full complement of their weapons. This is a different unit than we've seen in previous weeks now that they're starting to get kind of dialed in down the stretch.
Okay, so let's go through that. I know we'll have you on again next week, but Vanderbilt, they'll smoke. They'll blow out Vanderbilt. And then A&M, I think, is going to blow out South Carolina because I think South Carolina's, lost whatever mojo they had last year, and they're 94th in offensive scoring efficiency and 102nd in defensive scoring. They're just bad. And Rattler has no help and so on. But so I think A&M can impose their will against South Carolina. And then really Ole Miss's threats from here on out is A&M and Georgia because Mississippi State is just in a really major transition.
Yeah.
Is it a wait and see for you, or you think A&M can make that a game in 2 weeks?
No, I think A&M can make it a game because A&M's got talent and they have depth, and they're probably the most equipped to try to consistently, if you can, stop the run. Now, the only game that Texas A&M hasn't been able to stop the run was Tennessee on the road 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Aside from that, nobody's been able to run it off. And I think if you're an Ole Miss fan, like, all of these games become so important because they are signals as to where you are headed. Like, when the pressure's on and you have to have the win and it's down the stretch, can you come through? Because I think if you do, if you're Ole Miss, it's one of those trajectory seasons where you've proven down the stretch that you can hang with the big dogs and you can be there at the end. And that's why I think it's really important for the Rebels to show that each and every week. And I think they're capable. And listen, is Georgia going to have the better roster and likely be the better team when they take the field against Ole Miss? Yes, probably. But that doesn't always mean that the best team wins.
Yeah. Um, and here's what Lane's doing. He's got the quarterback. They generate explosive plays. And you don't have to be great in modern day college football right now on defense, but Golding has that defense believing in themselves, and they play fast. And that may sound ridiculous, but I think there's something to that, Tom.
Oh, I think there's something to it. Listen, we're in an era where you have to be competent and consistent on defense. If you're really good on offense and you know you can score and you can run the football effectively, you can create explosive plays, just be competent on defense. This is the blind spot that Lincoln Riley does not seem to understand at USC. And there are a lot of teams out in college football that are in the top 10, top 15. They're not elite on defense. They're not great on defense, but they're competent. They can compete. They can get off the field every now and then. They can create a turnover. They can force a field goal instead of a touchdown in the red area. And that's what college football has become, because the offensive personnel and the approach by way you try to get the ball into the hands of your offensive weapons spreads the defense so thin that it's tough to play defense in this day and age.
Yeah, it is. Tom Luginbill, national college football analyst with ESPN. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. If I would have told you that Arkansas and Auburn are maybe they wouldn't be good, and they're not, but they're a combined 0-9 in the league, and Zach Arnett would have a conference win before Freeze and Pittman, if I'd have told you that going into Labor Day weekend, what would you have said?
I would have said that it would have surprised me. It would have surprised me more that they had it over Arkansas, not necessarily Auburn. I think if you looked at Auburn and looked at who they are on offense, you knew they were going to have problems. You knew it was going to be a struggle for them. They are what they are. This is what Auburn is right now. And they're going to have to deal with this throughout the rest of the season. Arkansas has just, for the amount of experience, particularly at quarterback, that they have on that team, it's unfathomable that they could be as poor as they are. And they're really poor in the offensive line. But the bottom line with them, and I may have mentioned this last week, and I think, everybody loves Sam Pittman, but the reality is they've had 21 one-possession games at Arkansas under his tenure, and they've won 5 of them. And, Arkansas fans aren't asking you to continually go out and beat Georgia or beat Alabama or beat LSU routinely. If you steal one, they're great. But if you get in a one-possession game, you happen to get in one with Ole Miss like they did 3 weeks ago, or you get in one with BYU, or you get in one with Kentucky, you got to win those games. You have to.
Okay, let's go to this weekend. Mississippi State got a win. It was ugly, but they won on the road with the backup quarterback and Mike Wright. And their defense actually played well for the first time this year. And they brought pressure from all over the place. I don't know why I think Arnett got involved. They're never going to say it. I think he should have gotten involved from the jump. But this is 2 teams that aren't good, and they're trying to find their way. One's a first-year head coach that people look at as an interim coach, and then you got Freeze, who is going to get it right, but it'll take a year or so. So give me the matchup down on the Plains. Auburn just lost another tough game. It's a day game. It's still a tough place to play. What are you looking for in this matchup between the Dogs and War Eagle?
I would do the exact same thing that Mississippi State did to Arkansas and come after them and force them to make plays through the air. Arkansas obviously could not run the football, hasn't been able to run the football for weeks, which has been shockingly surprising. Auburn can't figure out exactly how to move the football. They just show flashes and they show chunks because they have some quarterback run game that can, sometimes get them out of a hole. But if I'm Mississippi State, with the lack of effectiveness and execution in the passing game, I'm going to load up the box and man up on the outside and dare them to throw it.
Okay. What do you give Arkansas 60-40 chance?
Arkansas?
I'm sorry, Auburn. Auburn.
I think this is more of a 50-50 because Auburn's good on defense now. And maybe they'll wear thin, and maybe they won't have enough in the tank because of how often they're on the field. But each and every week, they're doing their part. So I think it could be tough sledding for both offenses.
Okay. If you had you may have done them yesterday on your Sunday show, but SEC power rankings today, would you have Bama in front of Georgia because Georgia doesn't have Brock Bowers? Or do you still have Georgia at 1 in the SEC power?
No, I would have Georgia at 1 because Alabama on offense is such a Jekyll and Hyde unit, and they scare the heck out of you. And then at the same time, you're jumping for joy. They're going to have problems each and every week managing their deficiencies. Jalen Milroe holding on to the football too long. The offensive line struggling at the point of attack, particularly in pass protection. The inconsistency in the passing game when there's not a vertical throw to be made. That's a change. Somehow, and I think it's really strange, somehow this Alabama team has managed to still be the 800-pound gorilla in the room and also play as the underdog at the same time. It's really strange.
Yeah.
But that makes them scary, right? But no, I think from a level of consistency standpoint, you have to keep Georgia at number 1.
Okay, so Luginbill has Georgia 1, Bama 2. Do you have Ole Miss 3?
I have Ole Miss 3 with LSU nipping on the heels.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's kind of what the hell? You know? I mean, you go –
It's Missouri.
But look, give them credit.
Would you take Florida over Missouri?
I don't know if I could do that. I mean, I think.
Would you take Kentucky over Missouri?
No, but Missouri's schedule has been. But hey, they beat who's on their schedule.
Yeah.
And I like their quarterback, and you got to give them credit. Their NIL guys went out and got some players, and they have some skill. I got to give them credit. Yeah. And at a place that I've always thought, do they care that much? But, man, they loaded the boat, and they made some things happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, golly, man.
It's hard to say who the fourth team is. Like, when you start really doing the math, it kind of defaults to Missouri.
It does. I mean, it should be A&M, but it's –
You're right, it should be.
And I still think they're, like, pesky good.
Pretty decent. Yeah, I do too.
I don't know if they can get back on track. It'll be interesting to see if Jimbo's still allowing Petrino to do what he needs to do. I know they've taken a little bit of a step back on offense. I still think Petrino's really good, though, at calling plays.
Absolutely. They're just doing it with a backup quarterback who's a competent player, but he's not Connor Wigman.
Yeah. But they can get on track, though, if they blow out South Carolina this weekend. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll be interested to see if he loses that team. They've got a lot of money in. That's something that I'm looking around at right now. The balance
for each other, or are they playing for themselves?
Exactly. Arkansas checked out, and I know they're not super talented, but they spent some dollars in NIL. I'll be interested to see if Southern Cal's willing to play down the stretch. Is A&M willing to play down the stretch? I'm impressed that Tennessee's still playing hard and with purpose and so on. So it looks like South Carolina's done. But now that we're paying players, and I'm okay with it, it's just this fine line on keeping them engaged when things don't go well. Tom?
Yep. And this is the danger. This is the consequence when you start to do this, because we're not dealing with 28-year-old professionals who are doing this for a living. We're dealing with kids, right? And it is a very me world right now in intercollegiate athletics. And if things don't go well, what's the percentage of players that are going to go, well, I got mine? And
right.
That's the danger in all of this.
All right, that takes me to Clemson. Dabo has not embraced the portal. And here they are, and they've lost them. He's lost his coordinators. He's shuffling around here. it looks like they've lost their fastball. A lot of times when you lose your fastball, it takes a long time to get it back. Ask the Texas Longhorns. Mac bottled it for about 4 or 5 years. Southern Cal, Pete Carroll bottled it for about 4 or 5 years. Nebraska bottled it for 40 years and still hasn't got it back. And Tennessee bottled it for a long time. Now, they're trending in the right. I love what Heupel's doing, but it's taken them a long damn time, Tom. So with Clemson, once you lose it, a lot of times you may not get it back for 6 to 10 years. What are you seeing from the Clemson Tigers?
They're not as talented at the offensive skill spots as they were under Taj Boyd, Deshaun Watson, and Trevor Lawrence. The quarterback is not Deshaun Watson or Trevor Lawrence. If you really, really look and examine them, the quarterbacks cost them 2 games on 2 plays. Do you remember the 3rd and 1 against Florida State, where he had the RPO to the outside, and instead of handing it off to Will Shipley, who had just gained 9 yards on the previous play, he pulls it and throws it to the receiver into the boundary, and they lose a yard? That ended up costing them the game. On Saturday night, he has a give to Will Shipley on the 2-yard line and pulls it and runs with it and gets tackled. That's 2 plays the quarterback has cost them 2 football games. And I think what's happening now is self-doubt is starting to seep in.
Oh, no doubt.
And they haven't had that there. They've always been the biggest, baddest mofo on the street. They've always entered every game knowing they were the better team and then going out and playing like it. Now I feel like they have a mentality that they know they're talented, but they're not convinced they're the better team, and they're wondering if they can go out and win.
Right.
That's a whole different dynamic.
Yeah, their body language, their attitude, their approach is nothing like what it was just a few years ago in Clemson. Yeah. Who do you like better, Michigan or Ohio State?
I want to say Michigan, but they haven't been challenged. And, Ohio State now, we can say what we want about them. They have 2 marquee elite level wins. One at home, one on the road, top 10 teams. You just can't discount that. You may not like how it looks, but they're doing it. And as good as I think Michigan is and what their eyes tell me, I get it, and I would probably say they're the better team, but nobody, and I mean nobody, has even come close to challenging them. So, and when will we see that? Will we see it against Ohio State? Maybe will we see it against Penn State? What does Penn State do the rest of the way? Because now James Franklin's 0-10 against top 10 opponents.
I can't get a read on James Franklin and Penn State. I mean,
well, this was his chance because this is the most talented team he's taken to the field against Ohio State or Michigan.
And they did nothing on offense.
1 of 16 on 3rd down.
Good Lord. Do you think Harbaugh, I know he's a crazy man, and I know he's brilliant. And I think people actually underestimate what he's done at a place that was still living in 1959 with Schembechler and Lloyd Carr. And I think Lloyd Carr did a disservice to people who followed him. But anyway, with Michigan, Lugs, all this stuff that's going on, it's something different every,
I know.
I don't think he gives a damn. I don't think he cares, but he knows he's winning. He may beat Ohio State again at home in Ann Arbor. I mean, what do you think he's doing, and do you think he cares, or if he's just sitting there going, I'm going to the NFL eventually?
I think it's ego. I think it's arrogance. I think it's, well, come and get me if you think I've done something wrong. And if they get me, they get me. I really don't care.
Okay.
It's not like he needs to work for a living.
Right.
Right. It's not like he needs to put food on his table or put his kids through college. So, but this one, as bad as some of the NCAA stuff was, especially with having the kids on campus in contact during COVID. Anybody who thinks that whole NCAA thing is about a hamburger, it's not. It's way deeper than that. But this one's particularly bad because if you're sending it, and again, this is all alleged, but if you are sending people on the road, advanced scouting with audio and video equipment to match up signals with play calls and then have a 2 to 3 week head start on when you actually have to play that opponent and be able to match up a signal with a play call, that is bad ball, man. Mm-hmm. And if any of that alleged is happening, I get in-game signal stealing, sign stealing. That's part of the game. In-game, that stuff's going to happen. I can even get it when you're trying to match it up on film. Okay, that part I can get to, which isn't easy to do. But when you're doing this stuff, if you're doing this stuff with a representative on the road in a covert style operation, that really, in my opinion, crosses the line.
Mm. He's decided I'm going to run it and operate like it's the NFL, and I don't care.
Yeah, for the most part, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Tom Luginbill on the Farm Bureau Insurance Guest Line. We got a couple of minutes here. Give me your legit, not just because they've won throughout the year, your legit national title contenders today.
I think Michigan, Ohio State, Florida State, Oklahoma.
Really?
Oh yeah, I think they're good enough to be in the conversation. They are. After seeing them in person, they're vastly improved. Depending on the Texas quarterback situation, if we assume that they get through without a couple of weeks of Quinn Ewers and he gets back, I think they are. I think Oregon is. I think Washington is. And to be honest with you, I'm not. It's an imperfect team. I know that, but Utah is still a problem. Utah's going to be lingering in the Pac-12 race because they are so dominant on defense.
Okay. Do you think Alabama hangs on, or LSU or Ole Miss wins the West?
I should have mentioned Alabama because I think that they are. I think they're a team that right now is so Jekyll and Hyde, but they're going to screw around and somehow find themselves in the playoff race. But talent-wise, if you're asking me talent-wise, is Alabama a national title contender? Absolutely they are.
Okay.
And I was just going over mostly undefeated teams mentioning.
We're sleeping on Florida State, I think.
We are. But at the same time, we're also looking at a team that probably should have lost to Boston College and Clemson. They didn't. Don't get me wrong. They didn't. And I saw one of those firsthand, and they did not look good on that day.
Right.
And but we probably are sleeping on them a little bit. Miami going in the tank. North Carolina doing what they did. Not doing any favors for the strength of the ACC.
True. North Carolina this weekend. Wow. All right, we'll leave it there. What do you have this week?
BYU at Texas. So I'll get a chance to see what's going to happen with them offensively.
If Ewers doesn't play, is Manning starting?
I don't think so. Here's what I think will happen. I think given the 4-game redshirt rule, depending on what they find out on Quinn Ewers, is it 3 weeks? Is it 6 weeks? What is it? That they will go with Malik Murphy, and if he's not productive through a couple of games and they can somehow win, then they transition to Arch Manning if they need to, because they could still play the full slate of the regular season and still redshirt him.
That makes sense. Thanks. Appreciate it, Tom Luginbill. Be good, man.
You bet. Have a good one.
Glad to have him on Monday. He joined us on the Farm Bureau Insurance Guest Line. That interview was driven by your next Ford F-150 at Mack Hike Ford, I-55 North in Jackson. Mack Hike Ford, I-55 North in Jackson, the best selection of pre-owned and new Ford F-150s. Hey, check out Apple Podcast or Spotify and search Out of Bounds with Bo Bounds for the podcast. Good show today. We'll be back tomorrow. See you.